some words of wisdom, some advice on their careers, and potentially the future of computer science. And it would be good if you could do this all in 5 to 7 minutes. So I thought, not bad. So I'm going to try, and as I said to Gaurav and Yanis earlier this morning, if you guys get tired of my speaking, just start clapping at some point loudly and I can stop. So I came to USC in 1988, and I just want to thank the folks who made it possible, because USC was invaluable to me in many, many ways. George Becky, who recruited me, Bill Swartout, who advised me, Cecile Paris, who was not only on my thesis committee, but a mentor and a friend. And then other people at ISI, where I ended up doing my thesis work, Yolanda, Gil, and Kevin Knight. They shaped my life in ways numerous and unimaginable. And I am where I am because of folks like them. Just as you will all be in similar places because of the influences that USC has had on you. And finally, before I get to the 3 points I want to try and talk to you, I also want to acknowledge that for me, USC was more than just a place to come and learn, because I also met my wife here. She was doing her PhD in EE, and we've been together ever since. So, on to what I really wanted to try and convey to you. Computer science is a very analytical field, and USC is one of the best places to do computer science. I'm certain all of you are incredibly bright, incredibly technically sharp, and incredibly analytical. But there's a point that I think we often overlook when we think about what we want to do. And it's based, my understanding of this and my desire to talk of this is based on a talk I heard many years ago when I went to hear Clayton Christensen talk on innovation in business. And the talk turned out to have nothing to do with business, because he got distracted in the middle and started talking about how does one measure the impact of one's life. And his statement or his discussion around that particular topic was based on a reunion he'd had with his MBA classmates. So for those of you who know Clayton Christensen, he's an extremely well-known faculty member at the Harvard Business School, who's been an advisor to many, many Fortune 500 companies. It turns out that the graduating class of 1972 seems to have done incredibly well. Probably all the Harvard Business School classes do well, but 72 was one where something like 90% of the class ended up being titans of industry and Wall Street. And yet, when they met for their Silver Jubilee reunion, many of the folks in Clayton Christensen's batch, even though they had been extremely successful professionally, were not very happy personally. And so part of the reason why Clayton started talking about this was that we often tend to plan extremely well for our careers, but we tend to overlook the people who made our lives possible. For all of you here today, you would not be here if your families didn't support you, if your relatives and friends and teachers and everybody in your social circle didn't make it possible for you to be where you are today. And this requires work. It requires thinking things through. It requires that you try and think from day one where you want to be when you're 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, 100 years old. I know it sounds almost impossible for all of you, most of you whom are probably just 21 or 22 years old, to think about old age as being relevant. But I can tell you that this is something that you should be thinking about from day one. Amazon has a product manager program that is considered the best product management program in the country. And one of the things that distinguishes the Amazon product management program is that every product manager, before they release a product, or before they even start working on the product, write out every single press release that's supposed to go out on that product as though the product had already been released. It forces them to be very concrete in terms of the amount of effort that would be required, the amount of time that might be required, and the risks that might occur along the way. And so my first piece of advice to you, think about where you want to be when you're 40 years old, 50 years old, or maybe even 100 years old. And now to more technical things. My words of wisdom, I think I've gotten what I would call the main message I wanted to try and convey. I'll talk about my career choices and how they might potentially reflect on things that you might do. When I graduated from USC in 1993, my thesis work was on natural language processing, NLP. NLP in those days didn't really have a lot of jobs. On top of that, I had a two-body problem. Both I and my wife wanted to be in the same city, and we wanted to be in academia. So we ended up very fortunately getting jobs in Pittsburgh. Mine was a soft money research faculty job. It wasn't the most comfortable job, I would say, because I had never written grants before, never tried to raise money before. The group that I was working with was unknown to me.